Good morning, everyone. It's Louisa Donna Munson from, I was going to say Feel Good Astrology, which is also my channel, but this is the Barefoot Broadcast, and it's Friday, and we've already got loads of people watching. I'm thinking this ad hoc subject matter, like, is it possible to have a relationship without putting expectations on each other, could be something that's got people a bit curious. I'm hoping it will be a useful resource. And right off the bat, just before I bring Sarah on, I just want to say this is also going to be a resource for me. You know, I'm not here to talk about what makes a good relationship. I don't feel very confident there at the moment. So I'm really keen to see what comes up from this very open dialogue, and really, really hope that it's helpful for all of us, because I think you know, we are a species that likes to connect and likes to feel grounded. So please do, put your comments in the chat room. We'd really, really appreciate them. So let's bring on Sarah now, who is not only a good buddy, but somebody who I really respect. She's really got this amazing intellect and compassion and understanding, but this just shit hot ability to create really clearing questions and thoughts that all of a sudden offer us a huge amount of clarity and possibility. So let's bring Sarah on with a round of applause. No, actually, I'm going to give her something mystical. Do you like your entrance music?
I loved it.
Good, because you are like a good fairy, I think. You know, you are a very good mother. Thank you for joining me here today. I can see we've got Owen joining us, saying hello, Soul Sisters. Looking forward to
Hi,
this
Owen.
call. So that's all lovely. Thank you very much for joining us. It's a big subject, isn't it? What did you think when I was typing this to you? You're like, oh my God, don't go there, or yeah, bring it on, baby.
No, I will go there, no problem, because personally, my life, not that I'm an expert in any way, shape, or form on relationships, but I have spent a lot of time in my own life trying to make them better and trying to make things better, easier, um, more functional for both people, or people, a group. So there's difference between two people having a relationship, and then the relationship you have with, say, a group of people, your coworkers. They're still all individual. So it's
Yes.
really about me and you, and me and my husband, or me and anyone that I know. I feel like they're individual relationships. And so
Yes.
the question that you asked, is it possible to have a relationship with someone without having expectations on each
Yeah.
other? Is that it? So I think the answer is no, in general, but I
Yeah.
think it depends on the type of relationship that it is.
Yeah.
And because I've had, just give you an example, like one friend who, um, we're sort of we're still friends. We're not really close friends, but we get together. And if she manages to show up where she says she's going to show up, then we get together. But when we make plans, I know that she might not make it.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I actually expect that
Yes.
from her. And if she shows up, it's a delightful surprise.
Yes.
But that wouldn't work for me in, say, uh, a more steady relationship. Somebody that I'm
Yeah.
counting on a bit more. So
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Like
Well,
the different types.
yeah, I love the distinction you've made right off the bat. I love that. I'm just going to say hello to our mutual friend Maria. Hi,
Oh,
Maria.
hi,
How are
Maria.
you? Thanks for joining us. Um, yeah, I would agree. I've got some friends just like that actually that I know may not always you know like like we make commitments and it might not happen, and because I'm not counting on them on in my life on a is there there's some music in the background, can you turn it off please, I can really hear it.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
Sorry. Coffee then.
Thank
You
you.
weren't expecting that, were you?
No, I wasn't. I've just been giving her coffee. So funny, Mr. M. Yeah, I have friends that that it's okay not to have expectations on, who I give, like I guess there's a
But you
feeling of
actually
freedom.
do. You actually do have an expectation
I have an
that they
expectation
may or
from
may
like
not show up.
yes, yeah, oh yeah, that's true, yeah, and like you, in a relationship that I might value a bit more steadiness in, I do have greater expectations. And at the
Mhm.
same time, I also struggle with them because I love the idea of us um, in relationships kind of just meeting and knowing and just trusting that it's there because it's the most magical thing. Um,
Mhm.
and yet I also recognize that when my life, well, for me so far, when my life has been based on magical pixie dust and everything going really really well, that hasn't always happened, and then I'm not necessarily prepared for the disappointment, because obviously underneath that I have really had expectations, so I've been like, la la la, this is all great, la la la, I don't care, la la la, we love each other, it's all going to work out beautifully. And then I realize I've got a hidden expectation and it's
Mhm.
not met.
You mean, when you talk about the magical pixie dust, it's like out in that field that Rumi talks about in
Mhm.
between right and wrong where you'll go meet each other?
Yeah, 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 definitely.
That, yeah, that place.
That place, like that place where you fall in love for the first time, with
Oh,
somebody,
yeah.
and 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 nothing goes wrong. Everything is right. And even when there is something that's not quite right, it's like, ah,
Mhm.
I love and honor my mate so much that it's all okay. Um, and I
Yeah.
wonder if that is possible to stay in that state.
I really feel like all relationships that are close ones
Mm.
are a negotiation.
Uh-huh. Tell me more about that.
Well, I feel like, I mean, as far as these expectations that come up,
Mm.
they don't have to be imagined expectations if you actually negotiate sort of your deal breakers when
Mhm.
you're in a closer relationship. And you're not allowed to have like 20.
Mm.
It needs
Yeah,
to be just a few things that are, for this to work for both of us,
yeah,
that there needs to be just a few things that we can agree on. And so this is what I'd like, and this is what would you like? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, you can pick three or whatever. It can be whatever works for your relationship.
Mm.
But as soon as you agree to that, it's no longer an expectation that's put on you by the other person. It's now an expectation you actually have of yourself as well. So
Oh,
because you agree to it, then
yeah.
the other person doesn't have to keep coming back
Mm.
with an unmet expectation.
Yeah.
And again, this is just my point of view on it because I've seen
Mm.
things that have worked in the past for me.
Mm.
I'll tell you, like, this is a long time ago, but I was in this relationship where if we were out at a party and I wanted to leave,
Yeah.
but he didn't want to leave.
Mhm.
So he would actually almost argue with me on staying,
Right.
um, even though I wanted to leave.
Mm.
And it became a problem, because
Yeah.
then I felt like a prisoner, like I couldn't leave when I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
So we actually negotiated that later. I just said, "Look, can we just have an agreement because there were times when he wanted to leave as well, and I didn't.
Mm.
So it kind of went both ways. Um, but I just said, can we have an agreement that when if it's important that both of us leave together, and to me it was, like,
Mm.
I didn't want to, this was just my relationship. I know other people have different
Yeah.
things that are important to them, but we just said, okay, if I want to leave, if either one of us want to leave,
Mm.
there's no argument. There's like,
Yeah.
we just leave together and we smile while we're walking out the door and we leave together.
Mm.
One of us might be slightly disappointed because we
Mm.
actually wanted to stay, but it felt so, um, it felt like a give and take because it wasn't, and it did work. It worked for
Yeah.
the rest of that relationship. It just got ruined for other expectations that didn't get met.
Yeah.
Just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a negotiation. So, and when you bring your, uh, I call them deal breakers. These are your deal breakers. So when you bring your deal breakers to the table and you say, like, these are the things that I actually really would like in the relationship that I am choosing.
Mhm.
This is what I would like in the relationship I am choosing. And then the other person, um, I find at the beginning of a relationship, people will tell you the truth of what they uh, will and won't do. I think
Really?
people, yeah, I just don't think we hear it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
I
I'm
don't know
like,
if you have any thoughts on that,
I
but
certainly do. It's interesting because I remember when I met my first boyfriend. I mean, obviously, I can't talk like too openly because neither he
mhm,
nor Carl are here to represent themselves.
right.
but, but I mean, that relationship is so long gone. With my first partner that I was with for 11 years, there's so very few people that actually remember us together, apart from maybe our family
Mhm,
and a couple of friends. And there's, when I went into that relationship, I had the expectation it was going to last and it would end in marriage and a family, probably.
mhm.
And yeah, that was never. I mean, you don't really go into a relationship and say, right, I want to get married, I want to have kids, I want to settle down. I actually understand now that lots of people do go into a relationship like that right from word go. But
See,
somewhere along the line, we really, he was really indicating that it wasn't going to happen, um,
mhm,
and I pretended it wasn't a deal breaker.
mhm.
But in the end, other things started to break down. So, in the desire to make it work, like, and think, oh well, I mean, there was a situation, for instance, where he'd say, well, let's review this, in so many
Let's
years.
re
Let's talk about this further down the line, in another 2 or 3 years, which always sounded very reasonable, because we were in our 20s, and then, yeah, I was always thinking at the back of my mind, I need to make myself more marriable. So I was playing this
So you
game.
were making you
Yeah,
were wrong, you
yeah,
weren't the right, you had
yeah.
to change you.
Because I just thought, well, if he doesn't already know, like, after 3 years, then there must be something wrong with me. And so I didn't realize
Mhm,
at the time that I was actually playing a game of manipulation. I mean, essentially, that is what I was doing. I was trying to make myself appear more appealing, which actually probably did completely the opposite. Well, I'm guessing it did. We're not together. It made me probably appear more desperate, because I could have just actually chosen, you know what, this might hurt right now, but if I was to step outside of this, the
mhm,
chances are I will meet somebody that will love me and will want to settle and have a family or go off on great adventures. But actually, in the tension of trying to hold that together and be the dream woman, I got really ill. So I made myself completely ill in the process,
mhm.
which then obviously did help to end. That was the unspoken stressor, I think, that we needed to be able to both come out of a relationship. You know, illness became the reason,
Mhm.
but it wasn't.
Well, So while you were in that
Yeah.
and trying to change and shift and
Yeah.
morph yourself into this perfect creature unlike any other so that he would fall
Yes.
in love with you and
Yeah.
just demand that you marry him instantly or he was just
Yeah.
going to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh
It didn't work.
well, I mean, it's not like I haven't done that, and I think a lot of people can actually identify with literally where you're trying to change who you are, really.
Mm.
We don't know we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you're changing who you are because this feels so important. And I don't
Yes.
even care if it's a relationship.
Yeah.
Anything that feels
Mm.
really important to you, to the point where you feel like you need to change who you are,
Yeah.
is not.
It's not a relationship, is it?
It's not as important. Um, it's not more important than you.
Yeah.
And it's important. Um, then I've said this to you before that you include yourself in the equation. So
Yeah.
while you were making a deal all by yourself there because it was like, okay, the deal is I get marriage if I do this, this, this,
Yeah.
this, and this, or and I get the family if I do this, 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 and
Yeah.
this. Um, I wrote this down. It's so funny, and this is before we even had the topic
Okay, go on. What
today.
did you write down?
I wrote down, if I want to be free, I've
Mhm.
got to be me.
Oh, I love that. That's so lovely. Oh, if
So
I
If I
want
want to be
to
free,
be free.
I've got to be me.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, there's me, there's you, and then there's the relationship that we have,
Mm.
right? So
Mm.
there's always my freedom, and then there's your freedom.
Mm.
And now the relationship it works the best
Mm.
when you are 100% you
Yeah.
and I am 100% me.
Yes.
And there's going to be times when I'm not going to feel
Mm.
free as I would like to, or I'm going to feel like I need to like bend and shift a little.
Yeah.
And you're going to have that feeling like, I really want to do this, but I know that I probably should do this,
Yeah.
this kind of self talk. And that's where the deal comes in.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to make um, have this negotiation of,
Mm.
these are my deal breakers.
Yeah.
These are the things that, you know what,
Mm.
everything else I know that I can bend and flex and um, adjust.
Yeah.
But these are the things that I just know don't work for me.
Mm.
And if they don't work for me, um, it's easy to say to somebody, well, you do whatever you want.
Mm.
It's your choice. And yes, it is your choice. However, I just feel like there's this separate entity that is the relationship
Yeah.
that's where that exists, those deals,
Yeah.
with
I
that
mean,
person.
uh, I I really, really love what the cut of your jib here, Sarah, because um, I love the idea that you can show up in a relationship and be 100% you, and I can be
Mhm.
100% me. But you're right, there is the entity of the relationship, which
Mhm.
if you're in a friendship, if you're in a marriage, if you're in a loving relationship, if you're going out and whatnot, there is the entity which appears to be um, a series of agreements or understandings, or
Mhm.
like you say, deals, like deal breakers. I know when Carl and I got together 13 years ago, one of the things that he insisted on, which appeared to be one of his deal breakers right early on, was that we went away for the weekend and we studied this book that he had called Radical Honesty by Brad Blanton.
Mhm.
Oh my God. It was the most uncomfortable weekend I've ever spent in my life, I think. I actually thought the relationship might come apart because like this
It was so radical.
yeah, yeah. Like this guy, I mean, like I think one of his exercises, I mean, this is obviously 13 years ago, so I can't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure one of the exercises was to be completely naked in each other's company and just be completely comfortable being naked, which we'd done that. By that time, I was already pregnant. So, you know, this was quite an important weekend. One of the exercises was to talk about every single sexual partner we'd had in great detail, like everything that had happened sexually, how it happened, how it had all broken down. That was one of the things, and that took a long time to clear from my perspective, because I'd had quite a few years being very single, and I was, and you know, the whole purpose of that was to eliminate shame, blame, embarrassment, because you know the guy Brad Blanton who wrote the book recognized that where we are embarrassed, we're likely to lie. Where we feel ashamed and have regrets, we're likely to cover it up. And he recognized that people are much happier when they can go in with a clean slate. So that was one of the exercises, and I thought, oh crikey, this could go really wrong, really, really wrong. And then there was another exercise, and that was to admit if you'd lied already. And I had actually told a fib. I downplayed a little dalliance that I was having with somebody. I downplayed it. And by downplayed, I told a little porky pie because I felt embarrassed to be completely open and honest. And I thought that Carl would make judgments about me. And so it was really, really big to clear that. And the whole purpose of this is to just be really, really honest and then stick around to clean up the mess. And he gave a framework for talking about it. And so it was really, really helpful. And actually, in using his framework, we realized that there was nothing we could not talk about. Like, you know, we could talk about anything, and we would stay in the conversation until we could find some way to resolve it. It was about, like, one of his things was, you know, that you share all of your resentments fully, and the person listens to it fully without getting defensive, without getting judgmental, just listen. And we found that was really, really helpful, because it gave us a framework to just absolutely get them out. And the funny thing is, whenever we practice that, we realize that when we fully let go of our resentments, we would say something like, and your face is like a fish, or and your breath smells good, and I don't like your farts. And so, you know, we would keep going until we came up with these resentments, and it would actually get quite funny, and we'd fall about laughing, and all of that sort of helped us actually to create an intimacy. So yeah, the one deal breaker that came out of that weekend was infidelity. If there's an infidelity, it's over. But now I'm thinking, you know, 13 years down the line, maybe it is actually really wise to have these conversations and to take a bit more care and attention, you know, when you're contracting with somebody.
I
How do
do.
you go back? Like, you know, if you realize, oh, I didn't put that in.
I don't think you go back. I think it's ongoing. I think it's ongoing, and I think things run really smoothly for a while,
Yeah.
and maybe you don't have any major, and even minor things can feel major if they chip away
Mm, mm.
for too long of a time. But I do
Yeah,
think that if it's time to sit back at the table,
yeah,
again, I'm going to refer to this as a because when you're in a relationship, there's something in it for you, and there's something in it for the other person.
yeah.
That's
Yes,
what's happening.
yes,
And you bring certain things to the table, they bring certain things to the table, and then your relationship has a dynamic of the things that you do and be together. And I think that people get lazy with each other.
mm,
I know it's happened in my own relationship, like, and I'm in a happy relationship, but there are
yeah,
times when we just sort of, I'll even, maybe if there's some expectation that I know
Mm.
that normally I fulfill, and now
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm just like, well, I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe Dan doesn't say anything, but maybe his lip will twitch a little when I don't do it, or it could be some little, and once in a while that stuff isn't a problem. But I would say we've been together. I think next year we'll be married 15 years, and I would say there's a cycle of um, I don't know how many years it is for us, but every once in a while,
Mm.
there's this period of time where it's like, what do I have in common with this person? You know, and we're so different. Like, how do we get
Yeah.
along?
Mm.
Or I wish he would talk more, or I wish I didn't talk so much, or I wish I didn't need what I need, and all these like this jabber
Mm.
in our own minds. Um, But really, if you can sit down and you can get each other to agree, like it's important that we sit down and talk about this thing or these few things. I want to renegotiate. Can we
Mm.
renegotiate? And first of all, both people have to agree to do it.
Yeah,
And then,
that was gonna be my next question, like, what happens if the person you're in a relationship says, "Don't wanna do that. I'm not interested.
well, uh,
Don't wanna
well,
listen."
uh, yeah, I don't want to listen. I mean, I, f- well, look, if I want to talk about something, and it's gonna get talked about
Yeah.
somehow. I I mean, that's so interesting, that question you're asking me, because if there's something that I think is important, like I try to talk about things before they become
Anything.
festering boils with
Yeah.
pus coming out of them.
Yeah.
Like I really try to talk about it when it's a pimple,
Mm.
you know, not when it turns into this,
Mm.
you know, uh but sometimes things just they feel like that and they're not that, and sometimes they really are that. Um, if you now you just said to me, I'm going to use the example of um the weekend away where it was radical honesty, where you got to talk and the other person had to, agreed to listen.
Yeah. Yeah.
If if someone has ever agreed to do that with you once,
Mm.
they will agree to do it with you again.
Really? Interesting.
If they agreed with it once, they
Mm.
obviously thought it was important at one
Mm.
time.
Mm.
And therefore, I can't imagine if it was that important. And it's the same thing as I know that um, before, uh, when a relationship first starts, I don't know if people actively discuss these deal breaker things, you know, or if they just kind of show up randomly and then we scramble around and try to.
Mm.
Um, but the whole idea is that if something is bothering me, that you care enough about me that you want to listen to what's bothering me. And
Mm.
that's the place where it starts.
Yeah.
You know, it's if it's bothering me, then um and I need to talk about it, then I want you to be willing to talk about it with me.
Mm. Yeah. Wow, I love that. Mr. M has just chimed in. FAO, Mrs. M. I think we talk deeply, and my point of view is that you don't like my answers.
Hmm.
Which is it's another like, what are the deal breakers? I've also got another question, like, what about no-go areas? Where there are some areas that, like, people won't delve into, or they'll
Hmm.
go, "Oh, are we doing this
This
again?"
again. This again.
Because I always think that when you can get clear on something, you can step away and move away from it. But I think things only come up again and again and again when they never get resolved, when they're left hanging. 'Cause
Well, one
I
person
think,
is left hanging. One
yeah,
person is left hanging,
yes, yeah, yeah,
where it's like, okay, I'm asking you a question, and I'm very, so for me, it's like, if I'm just going to give you just an example, and I know
mm,
people won't all do this because I know
yeah.
that
Well, we've
I'm,
all got different styles, haven't we? And,
but like, if I am, if I have something important coming up,
mm,
and there are things that I am going to be expecting
mm,
of my partner.
mm,
Like, for example, I tell this little joke when we first got together, um, all these little holidays and things were important to me for some reason at the time. So it was like Valentine's Day. And so
yeah,
I actually said to Dan, okay, Valentine's Day is coming up in 2 weeks.
mhm,
I would like flowers
mhm.
and I want to be taken out to dinner. And
Lovely.
then I would just drop it.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks would go by. And I, of course, forgot that I even not forgot, but I had put in the back of my mind that we even had the
Mm,
conversation. So then I get, flowers and invited out to dinner. And I'm like,
nice.
"Oh, that's so sweet," because it was 2 weeks. I get and then one of my friends was like, "Dan's always doing this stuff for you," and she's talking to him about it. He said, "Well, she tells me what she wants." So
Mm,
I would present to you this:
yeah,
ask for what you want,
yeah,
and hopefully you have someone who will listen to what you want or
yeah,
what you would like. But this is again part of this. It can be outside of the negotiation thing.
mm,
I think there's just the deal breakers need to be small and few,
yeah,
because nobody can live up to somebody's list of 20 things that they have to have. And when you are keeping your end of the bargain, or when you're not keeping your end of the bargain,
mm,
don't fight with the other person
yeah,
about the thing that you agreed to, because
yeah,
you're going against yourself now because it's
mm,
part of the deal that you made. And I do think that things work better when there's an agreement
mm,
on deal breakers and there's no argument about them.
mm,
You just both agree. So
yeah,
it's not you imposing something. It's we agreed to this. And
mm,
it's not about even who brought it up,
yeah,
you know? And I mean, like, if so Carl made the point about, if you don't like my answers.
mm, yeah. And he's since said my honesty might be too radical now.
I think I'm going to be honest with you. I think that your honesty from the very beginning was too radical. I think I think that going and
That
like
would
laying
that would
all the
actually finish off most people, wouldn't it?
yeah. I mean, there's no way in hell I would sit down and talk about every partner I ever
Yeah.
had with
Mm,
someone. I just feel like that is one of the things that it's like, what that to me, but that's just my own
mm,
idea of it. Again,
mm,
everybody's different, but it's like, to me, why is that a secret if I'm not telling you something that's not to do with me and you?
yeah.
I don't feel, this is just my, because as you were saying that, inside I was like,
Ew. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did enter into that process with him, but I
so
was very
so he,
uncomfortable about it. I did
well,
choose
but
to do it.
but it's like he's open to the to radical honesty, which means he is going to be radically honest with you.
Mm, yeah, and it's true. I don't
Um,
I don't always like his answers.
so he's saying my honesty might be too radical now.
Mm,
It might, maybe sometimes it might be,
mm.
I don't know. I don't know how radical is too radical, but
Well,
you know,
like the idea, um, that people should be happy and live joyful lives, and that when we're bringing problems to each other, or when we've got things to discuss, maybe things that didn't get cleared properly in the past, it's like,
Mhm.
this is beneath our relationship. Right now I just want to live a problem-free life with just happiness. And I don't
Mhm.
disagree with that.
Mhm.
And when I feel like there's something that's left unspoken or not understood,
Mhm.
um, the only place, obviously, that I go with this is, well, this is something for me to clear. And
Mhm.
I honestly just feel that I feel lonely in that moment.
Mhm.
Obviously, one of my unspoken expectations is that in a partner, I have somebody that I can share what's on my mind. When I feel lonely or feel like something's too much, I have an expectation that I can count on them to listen and understand.
Mhm.
Um, and
And
that's not always easily met, by
that's
somebody
why
who
we
does.
have girlfriends.
Mm,
That's why it's important for us to have another friend that we can talk, maybe not about this,
yeah.
if it's something specific to that. But one thing I do know is that there are some things that, um, look, if somebody doesn't want to hear, okay,
Mm,
if you're expansive and you're taking an expansive view on everything,
yeah.
I always call these like people that have a broad view and then
Yeah.
people who narrow in
Mm,
on the details.
mm,
Okay, so I'm somebody who I do like to take a broad view, but I
yeah.
do think that the details make that broad view happen.
Yes.
Makes that wider. There are some details. So there can be some little tweak right here
Mm.
that could make this expansive for everybody.
That's exactly how I feel.
Right. So so if there's a little tweak that can make it expansive for everybody, you have to look at it again. It's like a negotiation. I honestly, it's kind of like
Mm,
a business
mm,
deal. I really feel like it's like that because, as I
mm,
said, there's things that I would bring to the table, and there's
mm,
things that Dan brings to the table. And
mm,
then when there's something that I'm not, that's not working for me, then
mm.
I need to be able to say, like, this isn't working for me. And I need him to be able to respond to that without reacting. So
Yeah.
there's this other thing that happens sometimes is when we'll say what we need, um, that we'll say what we need, and then the other person kind of reacts
Mm.
to that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
because they're taking it personally.
Yeah.
It's like we're taking it personally, like there's something wrong with
Mm.
me
Yeah.
now. And there's nothing wrong with anybody.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
do you know what I'm saying? It's like there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with Dan, there's nothing wrong with you, there's nothing wrong with Carl. There isn't anything
Mm,
wrong with any of us. There's
mm,
just this negotiation that takes place, and you either going to participate in it
mm.
or you're not going to participate in it.
Yeah. Which leads me on to another question, but before we go there, I can see the boys are actually rallying to have their
Oh,
own show about this.
oh, are
So I
they?
think I think their voices need to be heard. So Bob,
Yes, yes.
welcome. Thanks for joining us. Being told what you want is incredibly helpful as opposed to being expected to just know. There is a
Hmm.
need to pay attention to each other for sure, but male density can be rather dense. Elizabeth,
I agree.
hello.
Hi, Elizabeth.
um, um, where is that the one I've just done? Oh yeah. What do you think of this quote? What is said must always be true. What is true need not always be said. That's
I like
interesting.
it.
Yeah. And Carl saying, well said,
I
Bob.
agree.
You should just know. Yeah. I mean, I understand what the boys are saying there, that the whole idea, well, you should just know. I know. I think, I think,
Look at the
I think
comments. I'm
I
like,
think
woo.
I think I'm going to get schooled here. Let's just find out, shall we? Do we need to do a guy's version of this? Bob is saying, might be worth a go. Elizabeth is saying, so not being in the emotion when you discuss these things. Yep.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong except, here we go, unfulfilled
Well, let's go
expectations.
through these one at a
Yeah,
time.
I'd
Let's go
like
through these
to.
one at a
I
time.
mean, Carl, Carl was saying that I was coming up with lots of landmark jargon a couple of days, like a couple of nights ago. But I think this comes from landmark, if I'm not mistaken. Unfulfilled expectations, thwarted intentions, and unexpressed communications.
Oh.
So where should we?
Well, let's
Actually,
start at the first.
before we go there, actually, I did have
Yeah.
one question, which I
Mhm.
said I was going to come back to. You said something to the effect of, oh God, what was it? Something like you can only do it if everybody participates.
Mhm.
If there is something big that one person wants to talk about, and this is like why I was saying, what about no-go areas, where somebody's like, no, not going to do it, not going to participate. No, don't want to
So
have this conversation, not going to have this conversation, won't have this conversation. Whoa,
so that's
where's,
where I
where's
that's
growth
okay.
there? What do we do?
So if it's something, um, I've used this term before about letting someone off the hook.
Yes, I
Or
was going to
I
ask you
let
about
you
that right at the
right.
end. Yeah,
So
yeah.
so the idea of once in a while there's just something that can't, um, it's not huge enough to be a deal breaker, but it's a bone of contention between the
Mhm.
two of you. Um, it's not deal breaker material.
Mhm.
And again, the deal breaker stuff needs to be discussed and not changed every single day. It needs
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be like, these are the core, almost like your relationship mission statement.
yeah.
These are the three things or the four things that we're in this relationship, and these are the things that we're going to do for each other.
Mm,
Some of them because I want them, some of them because the other person wants them.
yeah.
I don't have to want everything that's
Mm,
in the all I have to do is agree that I will um I will participate in this because I care about the relationship. So
yeah.
I will agree that I'm going to do this. It might seem silly to me that one of the things that might be a deal breaker for my partner, but
Mm,
it's like this is one of the things that he wants on his list.
mm,
I have no problem just
yeah.
saying, "I'll go along with that because of you, because
Yes.
you're that important to me, and that thing
Mm,
isn't as important to me."
yeah.
So, so with the letting each other off the hook, that just has to be, look, we've discussed this. It's not in our present, life. It's something from the history. It's
Yeah.
something that happened in the past that we just every time it comes up, it's never good, and you know
Mm,
it's not a deal breaker, but every time it comes up, it's never good. So, okay, if it's something that I feel like you did to me, what if I just let you off the hook?
mm,
And then what if I let myself off the hook from thinking that I need to do anything with this? Like the reason we
mm,
bring stuff up is because we're still working with it. We still think we're going to be able to change it.
Or
And
understand it
yeah, yeah.
or let it
So
go.
and understanding it is our own. Well, think of the word understand.
Mm,
Isn't that icky sometimes?
mm,
I'm going to get under it, or I'm never going to
yeah.
get away from it because I want to understand it. So I'll just stand here and I'll
Yeah.
understand it,
Yeah, it's
you
not a
know?
good word, is it? I mean, I recognize there are a few things that um, I've never been able to truly unpack or I don't know, like it's almost like I've got a splinter in me
Mhm,
and I'd love to get the bloody
mhm,
splinter out and I can't find where it's gone in and I'm trying
mhm,
to understand what part of my body is holding on to this splinter. And I just think if I can get to the bloody root of it, I'll be able to let it go, and there'll be this healing. I saw Carl's last comment. I just want to
Okay.
bring it up because he said, alternatively, if I do not participate, that does not mean this relationship isn't important to me. Hang on, he said something first. There are no other upsets that I'm aware of. Oh, this is so unfulfilled expectations, thwarted intentions. We're coming to this, Carl. We will come to this. Sorry.
Yeah.
The splinter thing that I was talking about.
So
That's what I mean about understanding, because I always think if I can get to the like what is it that, because I do recognize that stuff that happens in my relationship with Carl has happened to me in my childhood.
mhm.
And I'm pretty sure, I think Carl has got some patterns that come from his childhood too. Not that he
We all
withholds his
do.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think we all.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us come out of our childhood unscathed,
Mhm.
without some idiosyncrasies, syncrasies and stuff. And I am always just trying to get to the root. There are some things I can just totally let go of course.
Mhm.
But there are some things that I feel are almost like I'm building my relationship on sand. And every now and again, some dog that's walking down the beach comes and takes a massive piss on
Mhm.
my relationship, and the foundations just crumble. And I'm like, shit, if only I could find that weak spot, I would. And I don't know what to do about it. I really don't.
So these I'm just my 2 cents,
Yeah.
obviously, again, like I do feel to an extent our triggers are these are the things that we're working on when we're doing these
Yeah.
private sessions. It's not there's some stuff that is relationship stuff
Yeah.
that's worked on in the relationship, and then there's some stuff that um is an inside job,
Mm,
and then we just project it onto
mm.
our relationships. I mean, that's these triggers that we're trying to resolve. I mean, I forget what her name was, but she said, like, your unresolved trauma is very attracted to someone else's unresolved trauma.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
is like, um, uh, that. So it's whether or not that thing is an inside job or not.
Mm,
Because if it's something that the other person feels helpless that their hands are tied in helping resolve that, that's when you get this frustration of, oh, this again. Like,
right.
I mean, didn't we already, I've sat with you through the 14-hour program where we've where we've discussed, literally that's, I
Mm.
think, maybe because I feel like uh, men, this is going to be very general, so I might get a little flack from this, but
Oh,
men
don't
just sort of, they want to fix things. They want to be presented with things they can fix.
worry. Mm,
They don't want to be presented with things that are not fixable.
mm,
Um, so I think some of it's a matter of figuring out what's the inside job and what can
mm,
be worked on with your partner. There are some
mm,
things that might affect my relationship with Dan, but I don't need to work on those things with Dan. Those are things
mm.
that I need to go work on. Um, with all this other stuff that we do and put ourselves through, you know, all of these, deep dives and,
Yeah.
even though working with Vinny,
Yeah, yeah.
these are the types of things that really help us get to the root cause of our bag. We all have baggage.
Mm,
So, but I would at least like to know that the person that's in the relationship with me, um, will sort of be an allowance of my baggage until I can get it sorted out,
that's
you know?
a very nice quality, I think. Rather than sort of taking the piss out of the process. Oh, you're obviously not very healed then. That doesn't work, does it?
Right, right. And there needs to be goodwill between people.
Yeah.
Um, I call it goodwill.
Mm,
I just see Bob says, I keep hearing deal breaker. What does that mean? I missed the very beginning. So,
mm,
deal breaker, Bob, I was just talking about how I really feel like relationships, um, that they are almost like a business,
mm,
in that there are these um, few things that we have with each other that are deal breakers. That if that other person, doesn't, there needs to be this agreement of this is what we um this is what we do together. This is what I won't do, um that you find to be a deal breaker, and this is what I won't do, or
mm,
that sorry, I get my head mixed up here. This is what we agree to that we won't do to each other. For
yeah.
example, infidelity.
Mm,
Because before we got on this call, I said, Dan, what's our deal breakers? And he was like, I don't know, infidelity. And that
mm,
was the only thing he could really think of. But
mm,
I mean, there are other ones. Um, I think a lot of people jump into a relationship and they don't even know
mm,
what deal breakers are.
mm.
I probably did that in the past, and that's why I now have this sort of agreement.
Yeah.
It's not going to work if we don't agree to these three things.
Yeah. Right. Should we go back to that
Yeah,
point?
yeah.
Because I don't want Carl to have a thwarted intention or unexpressed communication here or unfulfilled expectation. So he said, there's nothing wrong except an unfulfilled expectation, a thwarted intention, or an unexpressed communication. He's saying there are no other upsets that I'm aware of. It's a good game to try and find more. So Carl introduced me to the idea that in life, if you've got a complaint about something, it's because one of your expectations is not being met. You have an intention that's being thwarted, or you have a communication that's unexpressed. Um, I think one of the things that has come up like as an unfulfilled expectation is like we have these expectations, and when it's sort of unfulfilled, there's almost like I've heard it being described as like a toddler type energy. Where toddlers expect to get everything, um, and they go into a sort of like massive rage. "Ah,
Mhm.
you're stopping me from what I'm expecting. Um, but yeah, I wondered what are you aware of in terms of upsets?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Can you
Like, what do
rephrase the
you
question?
yeah. So there's, unfulfilled expectations,
Oh, okay.
um, thwarted intentions, and unexpressed communications. It's interesting, actually, unexpressed communications is an upset because actually, a lot of what we're talking about here is, where one partner wants to talk about something
Mhm.
like an unexpressed communication, and then the other person doesn't want to, or is saying, "Ugh, this again."
So put the first one up there again, just
Yeah.
so I can see it. Would you mind? Okay, so
Mm.
unfulfilled
I'll tell you what,
expectations.
I'll put them all together so you can see them.
Okay.
Unfulfilled. And I can see there's lots of other comments coming in. So I will get to the comments.
Mhm.
Um, so don't worry, we're not going to thwart
Although it's
you.
Black Friday, a great day for a good thwarting, I think.
Okay, right. So here they all
Okay.
are in one go as the
Okay.
upsets.
Okay. So the first one, unfulfilled expectations. So I think that there's two categories of this. So what
Mm,
I was talking about for expectations,
mm,
those are the ones that you both agree to
mm,
periodically, or at the beginning of the relationship, or
mm,
somewhere along the line where you say,
mm.
okay, these are the three or four things. And that's
Yeah.
sort of like a core expectation. And if they're unfulfilled, if this is what I call the things that are in the deal, that
Mm,
that you've agreed on. you're both agreeing on them. Nobody's expectations should be unfulfilled if you both agreed,
Yeah.
because they become your expectation and your partner's, because
Mm.
it's part of the relationship. All of
Mm.
these other little things that we expect, and there are things, where I'll expect something that's like, what? He didn't do that. But it's not one of the deal breaker things. It just pisses me off. Right? So
Yeah.
that's not the same thing. Those
Mm.
are the things that you can say, all right, me and myself off the hook, let you off the hook, or whatever these things are. If it needs to be revisited as a deal breaker, then you have to revisit that and both agree to it.
Mm.
Now, this is just something that I've made up in my head here over
Mm.
the years, but it seems to work.
Yeah, I
I
can
feel
see
like
that.
it works.
Yeah, it makes I can see that it could, like, when I sort of play it out in my head, I can imagine that it works.
And then
Thoughts and intentions then is like you're intending to do something, but you're kind of stopped. Like sometimes I get a thwarted intention that might create some frustration, like I'm trying to do something in the kitchen, I'm trying to cook, and a child keeps coming and disturbing me.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden I'm like, ah, you know.
Okay, so I firmly feel like intentions are only intentions. Um, they don't really become anything
Mm.
until you actually communicate, this is what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
what's going to make this work.
Mm.
Because I can have intentions, but if I don't communicate with the other people that are participating in
Mm.
these intentions that I set,
Yeah.
that's a recipe for someone getting ticked off. If I don't know
Yeah.
your intentions or you don't know mine. So
It,
intentions that are thwarted, I would like to think in a relationship are intentions that weren't communicated. And
mm.
hopefully it was something that it just wasn't discussed properly. And so therefore
Mm.
you couldn't really, so thwarted intentions, like someone else did this to you. Like that
Mm.
sounds victimish
Yeah.
to me.
Well,
Like,
I recognize that I've had some thwarted intentions. So for instance, I have the intention that I am holding and I'm really nervous about saying, like, holding space for the possibility of a great relationship with Carl's family.
mhm,
And I hesitated to say holding space because I figure that he might sort of criticize the terminology that I'm using, or say yes, or there's no bloody evidence of it, or whatever. But I have the intention to get on with his greater
mhm,
family, with his older daughters and his mum. I also haven't really communicated that with Carl. And then when I do say, look, my intention is to have great relationships with everyone in the greater family, because he never asked for me to do that,
mm,
it's not received with any kind of, not like, "Oh, well, that's nice that you have that as an intention." More it's
mhm,
like, "Why bother? I didn't ask for it."
mhm.
So, like, if you have an intention, but you're keeping it to yourself and you're not, I would have thought, "Oh, how lovely that you might care about my family and want to have a better relationship with them."
Well,
But
that's when I would look at
it's
that and say,
instinctual.
okay, how am I going to make this happen? Like
Yeah.
taking an intention and turning it into an action.
Mm.
Um, I don't know. I just think, what's the expression? The road to hell is paved with
Oh,
good
yeah, yeah,
intentions.
yeah, yeah.
Or there's this stuff that I think sharing your intention um, is with him. Is it? I don't know if there's a purpose. What is the purpose of sharing your intention with him? Because you feel like he would like it if you did?
I don't really know, but I just realized that I have these sometimes secret intentions. Like I have these, um, um, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I've got these intentions that things could be stronger, you know,
Right,
and
right.
better, and I hold the possibility of it. But obviously, that's that's not actually seen as me taking action, because it's not physical action, is it? It's like an emotional or a psychic or a spiritual
Well,
action.
that's something though. That's something. That is
Yeah,
something. Holding the space for it is something.
yeah.
It is.
Um,
So
and it,
the thwarted intentions is like there's this, I don't know. I think when we choose something, we could choose it. And if we choose it truly, we can have that choice.
mm,
Um, as long as everybody's participating in it, that the
mm,
choice has to be about us. We can't choose for
yes,
anybody else.
yeah. Well, I recognize also with a thwarted intention, my intention might be that we have a clearing on something. But again, like you say, it's the participation. I guess, you can only clear something on your own if you're doing it
Yes.
on your own. And maybe that's,
Well, when you include somebody else, that's definitely not, it doesn't really work unless you present an intention. Okay, so my intention is that you and I can have a better relationship with each other.
yeah, yeah,
And then, but saying that and just actually taking steps to make that happen,
mm,
you can say anything.
mm,
Um, I've had a lot of honey dripping promises whispered into my ears over my years,
mm,
and what somebody says and what they do are not the same thing.
yeah,
And sometimes people just think out loud and say, I have the intention to do this because it's a way to get themselves to start choosing
mm,
those things. So it just depends on the person's process. But to me, if I have an intention, nobody's going to thwart it because I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm just going to go do it
mm, yeah.
because my intentions um, cannot be thwarted by anybody but me.
I love your spirit there.
That's how I feel
Um,
about it.
so unexpressed communications then?
Well, I mean, if you don't say,
Mm,
if you don't communicate it, um, or you pretend everything's okay when it isn't,
mm,
that's dishonesty.
mm,
You're being dishonest with yourself.
mm.
You're not being yourself. And if I want to be free, I've got to be me. Remember that?
I love that.
And anytime you are making yourself smaller, or not being who you are, you're making yourself not free. You're now in jail, and you're now going to blame everybody around you.
Mm, yeah. Okay, we've got quite a few comments coming in, so I'm going to rattle through them all, and then
Yeah,
I think we should probably um, start to wrap this up a little bit, because I'm mindful of the fact that you volunteer your time here, and I think it's really beautiful, and I really appreciate how you show up. I really, really
I
do.
love being invited. I
You
do
have an
enjoy
open,
it.
you have an open invite. So.
Oh,
Um,
there's a lot of comments.
Yes.
Holy.
So Carl says, if we look for trouble, we will find it. I think the splinter theory is pathologically unhelpful. And whilst connecting to the good as a priority might be bypassing, it's preferable to me than
Uh,
misery loves company. I think that was,
what is
when I said, um, there might be one or two things that I'm struggling to unpack or get to the bottom of or understand. And so
I
Carl is
think
saying,
some,
well, if you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. And I think the splinter theory, the idea that, I've got something stuck in me, is pathologically unhelpful.
well,
He holds the
okay.
possibility that we can connect to good. I don't share, whilst I do connect to good as a life choice, there are a couple of things that I cannot connect to good straight away. There are a couple of
Oh,
things that I have stuck somewhere that I can't get to the bottom of. And so I can't do the path, 'cause I like when I see good as a priority might be bypassing,
oh,
actually
I see.
I can't do a flat, let's make
Bypass.
everything good here.
Right, Right.
Because I do see it as bypassing. You know, there are some things that I would like to understand more, because I do have some skin in the game. I do have some triggers, probably from the past, that are playing out right now in my
Mhm.
relationship.
Mhm.
And I would like to be able to, and I guess this is where you're right. I need a girlfriend, because
Yeah, well, and I don't necessarily, I mean, I don't know if I really agree that it's pathologically unhelpful about the splinter, because I do think sometimes finding that little spot, I mean,
could
if
lead you
it's a
to a big
splinter,
expansion.
right, right. So I mean, it's one way. He's saying connecting to the good as a priority might be bypassing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be bypassing. Um, it might feel like bypassing to one person,
Mm.
and it might feel like not
Truth to the other.
bypassing to the
Yeah.
other person, right? So
Mm.
that's why we have to really go. It's an inside job. We have to
Mm.
be the person that we love,
Mm.
and then a lot of this stuff, it doesn't get to this point because we
Yeah.
love ourselves so much that we don't let it get there.
Mm. Yes. Thank you. I mean, I hold both of those possibilities, because I do
Hmm.
think looking for splinters is pathologically unhelpful. But where there is one, I remember years ago actually having a splinter on the bottom of my foot.
Hmm.
And I asked Carl if he'd look at it, which is something he really hates doing. And he gave it a
Did he?
cursory
I was going
glance.
to say, did he agree?
He gave it like a man look and said, "There's nothing there." And 2 weeks, I had this awful pain in my foot, that didn't get any better. And I asked him a couple of times. He's like, "I've already looked. There's nothing there." And then finally, um, I managed to like get my foot up, and I found it. And it was like a little hair, but that
Hmm.
tiny little hair had caused me so much pain, and it was like a thistle hair. And when I removed it, the pain just disappeared, and I felt
Yeah,
like I was walking on air, because I felt so relieved. Like the relief
yeah,
was absolutely palpable, and it was such a simple little thing to heal. So
yeah.
I really hold both of those. Um,
And that whole time, Carl's foot never bothered him at all.
no, no, it didn't. That's true. Yeah.
So
And he
it's
couldn't
like
understand
yours
the pain
then,
that I was going through,
right? It's
because it
not
was my
his.
splinter. But I
Yeah,
asked him for help to find it, and I
yeah,
said it was there, and he said, "No, there's nothing there." And I said,
yeah.
"That was a boy look. I would like you to have a look again." "No, no, I've looked. I've done it."
It wasn't a stick.
No. Well, you know, what I learned from that is do not walk barefoot down the slope of where we used to live, because
There you go.
it was a hard thing to look for. Yeah. So I did learn something there. Elizabeth is saying, going through life, I realize that it's only me who can resolve issues and make choices I need to.
Mhm,
Same as if you're sad, no one can take it away.
mhm.
Best quote of the day: "What girlfriends are for," when a woman says it, not a man. Ovs. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be having secret walks or being invited out for like cocktails by some other woman, would you? Deal breaker, aka boundary. Bob Wenger saying, boundary,
See, I
helpful
agree.
perspective.
They're
Let's
they're
play.
helping
Any
each
other
other.
upsets? This is a great show, by the way. I didn't get that from your comments, but thank you. Hats off to you both, superb women. Tantrums are poor communication from Bob. Um, Bob is also saying, Elizabeth, yes, agreed. I do enjoy how Viv and I support each other in working through our own stuff by invitation only. Wonderful. I
Mhm.
mean, Bob, I know both you and Viv have been in relationships before. What would you say um, is your winning formula? Because you seem both very, very happy and contented. How do you deal with things when, like, do you ever fall out? Do you have things that you need to work on? And if you do, how do you tackle it? I'd love to know. Bob
Mm.
is saying the road to ruin is paved with good intentions. I've used that as a personal motivation to get moving before. My best
Right.
intentions mean nothing in someone else's reality for the most part. Yeah. When our relationship started, I asked lots of questions to feel if this man's values were okay for me. If not, no reason to put energy in the relationship. Now, I find that very, very useful,
Mhm.
um, because I recognized the first relationship I was in, I didn't have many shared values with him.
Mm.
And we had, nice friendship, and it was very easy in so many respects, but our values were really quite different.
I almost feel like sometimes we were just attracted to someone, and then we
Mm.
tried to make that fit.
Yeah.
It's like because I'm attracted to this person, now I'm going to make them. Let's work with this. And yeah, it's dysfunctional. Really, it doesn't work.
I have to say, like, when I met Carl, I mean, that was the thing that really interested me, was his compassion and his understanding and his ability to talk about any subject and
Mhm.
dive. But also, I really loved his values. We had
That's
shared values,
amazing.
and it was such a relief to be with somebody that I shared values with.
Had those
He's-
same values.
yeah. So he's saying intentions are like ideas and opinions. Bob saying, wow, Sarah, be the person that we love. Powerful. I would agree with that. And Elizabeth, Cilicia, certainly would have gotten that splinter out. Elizabeth, what about those emotional splinters that we're talking about, the psycho-spiritual ones? Is there a good remedy for us to get those out with? That
Wonder
would
if it's
be
the
also
same
helpful.
thing.
So
Oh my goodness.
we've spoken about so much in this, and I think we could actually talk again, because I would like to talk about where we learn about relationships from, and are there any good role models out there. I have to say I haven't really met many. I've met more recently, but you do kind of grow up a bit blind, I think, when you get into your first relationship and whatnot. But have you got any final thoughts for wrapping up today's session?
I think that the best relationships are with people who both people feel free,
Mm,
and both people have goodwill towards the other person, in
mhm,
that you want the best for them.
mm,
And we have to be open to uh, reminders about sometimes what we need from each other. I think
mm,
that's important, to receive it and to communicate it.
mm. That's beautiful.
And I'll just repeat, if I want to be free, I've got to be me.
Yeah.
And uh, you can still be you and be in a relationship, a good one.
Mm. What a nice thought. What a nice thought. Okay, well, thank you everyone that's been here today. Bob's giving us a final thought. We definitely have to work things out. We can communicate quite well. It does sometimes take that invitation to move beyond intentions.
Mhm.
Very good.
Yeah, sit
Right.
down at
Well,
the table.
yeah, and participate, meet at that
Yep,
table.
yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much once again for joining me, Sarah, and to everybody and everyone in the chat room.
I
Everyone
love
that's
all
here
of the
today. It's been
all of the
great.
participation in the chat room
Yeah.
was really fun.
Yeah, it's been very, very dynamic. So thank you so much for joining us. And maybe you will join us another time for another discussion where we'll deep dive into all sorts of different things, and also make you part of the show as well. I think it's really important. This is a community-led show, really, I would say. Would you agree with that? It's for the
Yes, for
community.
sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, lots of love to you all, and see you another time. Bye for now.
Bye.